Hello, hello. Thank you very much for another session of Divine Drug Healing with Laughter. This podcast this week has a phenomenal friend of mine on it, and I'm so excited for you guys to get to know her. This is Jess Van der Hoek, and I've known Jess for many years. She was a paramedic here in the city of Calgary and has her hands in so many different pies. And for many years has, and what she's done is absolutely incredible. So what I kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit about just today is, one, can you just kind of tell people kind of, a little bit about your story and who you are, and so they can all get to know you a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jessica, and like Connie mentioned, I've been a paramedic for quite a few years, 21 now, going into my 22nd year. The last 18 of it's been here in Calgary. I also run a charity, and it's our 12-year anniversary this year, which is a huge accomplishment.
Yes.
And that's an Equine Assisted Therapy program. And we offer programming to adults and kids with special needs, at-risk youth, and recently launched about almost a year ago now, our first responder and military personnel PTSD program. And I'm also the director of programming for a psychedelic clinic. So it doesn't tell you much about me, but it does tell you about what I do. So that's what I do in a nutshell. Yeah.
But that does speak volumes to who you are. Really, considering what you do and the things that you're involved in, that speaks it screams to the type of person that you are in here, which we, who knows you, are lucky enough to experience and know that, and over all these years have seen, especially the question come from zero, like I'm going to do this and go, and to now where you've brought it is incredible. And then again, your journey through the paramedicine and all that kind of stuff as well.
I don't do anything the easy way, that's for sure.
Yes. No, that's a good point. No,
I signed up for some karmic lesson coming back into this lifetime. I mean, I know what it was. Like, I understand the contract that my soul made before I came onto this planet. I think I have that part figured out, but it's like, Jesus, I hope this isn't the rest of my life,
No, I think there's got to be, that's the way I look at it, right? It's like, we can't make this shit up, and we have to go through it all, and then at some point it's like, okay, that's good, you're good, that's good, you can tap out now, right? We're done.
That's enough. That's enough.
Time.
But like, I don't know how stubborn my soul is, and maybe my soul is like, no, go ahead and teach her lessons her whole life.
Yeah. Yeah, that could, I could see that. Oh. Do our personalities, mirror our souls just enough? Asking for a friend.
I think so. Yeah. I think to some degree, it really depends on what your lesson is. I think there's definitely aspects of your soul and your personality without question. But when you look at really evil people, I don't believe they have evil souls. I think they're here to have an evil experience. So I'm not really sure about the answer to that.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk aliens and go off on a tangent.
No, I was actually thinking about my ex-husband.
Oh yeah, well, there are aliens on this planet, and so their souls are corrupt for sure. But anyways, yes. Not aliens. There are evil. There are great aliens, and then there are evil aliens. And anyways, that's a whole other.
Okay, just a second. I need to drink.
To the topic. Have a drink.
Cheers to you. Yeah, I just had to drink on that one.
Yeah,
because I completely agree with you.
Oh yeah, there's lizards. Anyways, I'll keep going if you let me. So stop
and go.
Exactly right. The royal family. No.
By the way, I saw something in one of my psychedelic trips I really need to have talked to you about.
Oh yeah, yeah. I know what the royal family really is. Oh, put me on a list of conspiracy theorists, right? I'll be the.
Yeah, I'm gonna get in podcast jail.
Either that or you're gonna be getting emails. Who's the conspiracy theorist? I need to talk to her about a couple of things.
Right? What it is. That's what the DMs are gonna be. It's like, I need to hook up with this girl.
Exactly.
Yes, because we all know it. Aliens. We're just afraid to admit it or say it out loud. Right?
Yeah.
So what I have found very interesting, and one of the reasons that we're having this talk today, and we're going to be having many more about different aspects of things that you do, but what you've kind of gone through recently is that transition. So you went from the transition from EMS to what you're doing now. So could you kind of walk us through because that's a big transition, sort of, but it's to make that decision is basically after all those years, is to say now, so what sort of brought you to that point?
So I was diagnosed with PTSD, treatment resistant, back in 2011.
Yeah.
And that journey brought me to psychedelics in 2018. And that completely changed my life because I had quite a bit of childhood trauma, PTSD from the job, and then some other things that had happened to me that I really needed to heal. And so once I healed those aspects of myself, I was able to go back as a paramedic and function quite well. And like I'd been working up to that then, but not functioning well in the job. And then after that, was able to really function, but it became very clear to me that you cannot out-heal a toxic environment. So it doesn't matter how many psychedelic journeys I did. It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter what your meds are, how much counseling you have, how much time you take off of work. You can't out-heal a toxic work environment. It will always be toxic. And so in this journey home to myself and in getting to know myself, I realized I'm quite capable of doing a lot of other things.
Yes.
And so, I've been running the charity that entire time, even when I was injured, which I look back on now and go like, holy shit, who runs a full-blown charity when they're like severe PTSD?
Yes.
Which I'm really proud of.
Yes.
So it's funny because my psychedelic journey was very much brought to me with the help of my uncle initially. And I remember sitting in Mexico and still being really high after my last ceremony and journey, and him laughing at me and saying, "You're going to work with psychedelics." And I was still really high and still not feeling great because it was ayahuasca. It was my very first time working with ayahuasca, the only time that I've worked with ayahuasca so far. And I was still really just sort of like, whoa, what just happened, right? Yeah. So when he started laughing at me, and my uncle is a channeler, so he's like a psychic on steroids, like,
yes,
right? Yeah. So when he says something, he's not just saying it, like he knows it to be true, and he has yet to be wrong. So I'm just like, so I literally looked at him and I said, "Oh God," in front of everybody. With no humor in my voice, because I was like, absolutely not, I will not be doing that.
Yeah.
So came back to work, EMS, was able to start really looking at what it would look like to have a PTSD program with the horses, because that's the charity we run, right?
Yes.
And so I really started to it'd been on my mind for quite a while that we really needed to do some work with the horses, but the issue is always for me was that I was too injured. And I didn't want to project all over people. I didn't want to distract myself from healing by being busy helping other people, because that can be its own way of bypassing your own healing, right? Is like, well, I help other people, so that helps me. And like it's a component of it, but you cannot distract yourself from your own healing by making yourself busy and using that. So
I think, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but so many people do that, in myself included.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if I just stay busy helping other people.
Yes, and we deflect. I'm a master deflector. I've been told I'm a pro at it, and I say thank you very much. I've worked hard at it, right. But they avoid. They do everything, and as you said, if I'm helping someone. Mm-hmm. They always say if you're stuck or if you don't know what to do, then serve, right? So I think
there's value to that, but it can be a very double-edged sword.
Yes,
right? You have to be conscious about it.
Yes.
Like I'll help people while I'm on my healing journey. And for me, I knew that I needed to heal before I ran the program. So 2 summers ago, I sat down and wrote a grant. I'd never been successful writing a grant. and had the help of a good friend. And lo and behold, we were successful. So I was able to build my dream PTSD program. And the really neat thing was I was sitting at a fire hall. We've been flexed to a hall, which means, you know, we move an ambulance from one area of the city to another area of the city for no good reason. And
yes, that's our ambulance system.
Skynet. Anyways, if I get going on EMS right now, I don't know if I'll stop. So anyways, we have this really horrible computer program that moves us around the city like a bunch of chess pieces for no good reason. And so I'd been moved to a different hall. And I remember going and sitting in the kitchen and just having this like download, you know, like, this is how you got to do the program. This is how you got to set it up. So I was like, grabbed a notepad out of the captain's office and was just like really busy writing everything down while I could still remember it. And then I had a couple of psychologists look over it and just say like, am I on the right track here? Because all of it was based on my experience and what I thought that I would have needed to hear and feel and see in order to get help and in order to feel safe and in order to get value out of it.
Yes.
So I sat down and did that. And then just kept pushing at it. We ran a trial project or trial pilot with it. And that went really well, but then we had no funding for it. So, and then I wrote the grant, was successful. So all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, my dream is coming true here. You know, like I get to be paid to help other first responders heal with horses. Like, this is incredible. This is a dream I've had. I came out of the womb loving horses. Like, that's the kind of kid I was. Nobody needed to introduce me to them. I just came out of the womb in love with them. And growing up, we didn't have the money for one. I had one for a while and she tried to kill me 3 or 4 times. And then I decided maybe I didn't need a rider anymore. He was an off the track thoroughbred, a mare, no less.
Oh, yes.
So she tried to kill me a few times. And I just realized that I was completely out of my depth with her. And that's a regret I have without question, but I didn't want to die. So, you know, like when I was a kid growing up, I wanted to be a vet before I became a paramedic. And so my dream was to be a show jumper and to work with horses for the whole rest of my life. And all of a sudden, you know, this is happening. And it's like, I got a taste of freedom. I got a taste of what it looks like when you get to consciously decide what you want to do and what your job's going to be based on your passion. But the issue with being injured with PTSD is you really get cut off from your passion.
Yes.
Right? You're so separated from it. Like, I don't know, I probably spent 7 years trying to figure out what my next job move was going to be so I didn't have to go back to work.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure it out. Like, I could not get inspired. If you'd asked me like, well, what do you love doing? I'd have been like, well, I like hanging out with the horses, but like getting a paid job working with horses is like, doesn't happen. I'm not an instructor. I'm not a horse trainer. You know, I wouldn't be able to charge anybody for that or be qualified to do that. So those are really the 2 things you can do with horses, and I can't do either of them. So that dream's out the window.
Right.
And I couldn't perceive myself going back to work, or back to school, I mean. So I was really feeling trapped. Like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Because I think as paramedics, and when you have PTSD, you really feel like you're too fucked up to do anything else.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm too messed up. I can't be around normal people. I can't work a 9-to-5 job. I can't work in an office. And we also get brainwashed into believing that our shifting schedule is really amazing, and it's not. We get paid garbage. First of all, we get paid. It actually makes me cry to think about what we get paid. And our schedule's 4 on, 4 off when you're full time, but you need a full day to sleep because you get off at 6 o'clock in the morning. So that's not really a day off, right?
No.
And then you're so messed up from working 2 days, 2 nights that you don't actually have 3 days off. You know, it's not, your quality of life just isn't there when you get to the point in your career where I was. And so I was feeling desperate, but I also was like, there's nothing I can do. I don't know what else to do. And so the big key piece that I had to learn in there was, if you focus on your healing, your purpose will show up. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So the universe was just saying, Jessica, I need you to treat healing like a full-time job.
Yeah.
And when you do that, I promise you, I will show you why you're going through everything you're going through and what you're supposed to be doing. You don't need to worry about it. But I was so injured, I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust my soul. And I definitely didn't trust the universe, because, you know, if you'd asked me at the age of 38 how I felt about life, I would have told
Yes.
you I haven't had a single good year. I haven't had a single good month. I hate being alive, and I'm exhausted, and I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I couldn't even tell you I had a good week, like a single
No.
one in 38 years where I had like a great week. And I was just so, yeah, I was ready to get off the planet without question, like, and without hesitation. I would have exited.
I'm not crying, you're crying. No, I'm kidding. And why I'm so emotional about this is because I saw you go through it.
Uh-huh. Yep, you did.
And what you're saying is so bang on. And the helplessness,
yes,
we all felt, that wanted to love on you and hold you and tell you, but as you said, nobody can tell that but yourself. And no. I just remember, I don't know, I'm getting that knot in my stomach again, how hard that was for you, and to watch you go through that and knowing you had to do this. So then now I want to love on you even more and say, I am so proud of you.
Thank you.
For what you have done, where you have come from, and how you got there.
Yeah.
It's incredible, Jess. It really is. And you know, I said I just kind of want to be like you when I grow up, you know, even though I'm older than you, but you know, it's just the power that you've had, the fight, you know what I mean? Like, you knew there was something else. Always.
Yeah. And I mean,
I think
I didn't. There was definitely periods of my life where I just felt complete hopelessness. And I really wondered, like, what's the point to me being alive? Like, it felt like I was walking around a china shop where everything was like super fragile, and it didn't matter what I did. Everything I touched just fell apart and broke.
Yes. Even your shifts.
Right? Like,
oh, I remember everything went wrong in your shifts, and the calls you got were unbelievable.
It just didn't matter what I did. It didn't matter how hard I worked. It didn't matter if I took the meds. It didn't matter if I went to counseling. It didn't matter if it felt like I couldn't win, and I was drowning in the can't win, because everything that could possibly go wrong pretty much did, you know, like in my own personal life. There was so many aspects of it, and it wasn't for a lack of trying on my part. Like, I can honestly say that when I look back, I tried so hard.
Yes, you did.
To do the right thing, and to work hard, and to do all the things that you're supposed to do. And it just felt like I was like being punished every time I turned around. I felt like I was being punished for being alive, you know, like, so, I mean, I made a pact with myself, right? I had like a 2-year-long suicide pact with myself, where I just said, if tomorrow's worse than today, I can get off this planet. I don't need to do this, because what's the point? If I'm always going to be broke, and I'm going to be single, and I'm going to work my ass off and get nowhere, and I'm going to love and put so much energy into the world and get nothing out of it, what's the fucking point? You know what I mean? I can understand if I wasn't trying, but God damn it, I tried.
Yes, you did.
So hard, and I tried everything, and I could not win to save, not even a little win. It was just like, I need to be done. So in almost a way, that suicide pact with myself was like a pressure valve. It was like a release valve. It let some of the pressure off.
Okay. Yeah.
Where I almost got into that place where I was like, it was like a surrender state to some degree.
Yes. Okay. I could see that.
Right. Where like my whole life burned. My best friend died of cancer. My dog died of cancer. I had to sell my house because I couldn't afford to keep it anymore. There was a bunch of other things going on too, right?
Yeah.
So it was like, when I looked back on my life at that period of time, the summer of 2017, I think everything was in ashes. Like, it was just a smoldering heap of ashes. Everything that I'd worked for, everything that I'd, thought that I'd accomplished, minus the school. The school's still there, the charity's still there.
Yeah.
And that's been a struggle the entire time too, right?
Yes.
That's been an uphill battle, making that work. And that's a whole other story. But the thing is, once my uncle said to me, once I did that treatment, I did 4 different kinds of psychedelics in a week-long period. I came back a completely different person with a totally different outlook on my life. And all of a sudden I realized, like, there's more here. And once I was able to sort of integrate the new me into my life, I started looking at, so where is my real passion? Where is my real purpose? And so looking at working with psychedelics full time was, just despite telling my uncle to fuck off, when I really realized, like, this was life-changing for me. This changed everything for me. I need to somehow make this available to other first responders. So I started digging deep and looking at that, and I started facilitating with psychedelics. I started working with other ones so that I could speak to them, because there's quite a few that are illegal here in Canada that nobody knows about, and then they're also legal in other countries, right? So but then also you look at that and you go, well, am I going to do something illegal, or am I going to kill myself? Like, which one comes at a higher cost, right?
Yes.
So people have to make that choice for themselves, right?
Yeah.
And
well, weed used to be illegal. Right? Well, and it's not anymore.
The government just handed down a ruling that physicians can prescribe their patients psilocybin and MDMA, and there are rules around that, and you have to apply for an exemption, and it's not straightforward. It's not like they're just going to hand you a dose of MDMA and say, right? There's a lot to it, but if you look at it, the world's finally starting to catch up. But 2.5 years ago, no one talked about this stuff.
No, exactly. Yes.
Right.
That is very true. Very true.
I started really having a lot of conversations with my coworkers and being very open about it. And I noticed that the response that I was getting from people was one of, like, I really want to know more. You know what I mean? Like, I'd have like 8 people standing around me listening to me, like, I want to know more about this, because I started to realize, like, I always knew that first responders really suffered a lot because of the job they do, but I wasn't aware of how many people would actually be interested in psychedelic treatment. Like, that part really blew my mind. And I started thinking to myself, okay, so what is legal and what can I work with, and how can I help people get the help they need? And so I started building a business plan. So I was like, you got to start somewhere, right? You got to let the universe know you're interested.
Yes.
And a business plan is like one of those ways, right? If I write a business plan, it tells the universe that, hey, I'm interested in doing this. So that's what I did. I wrote a business plan, and I got about 75% of the way through it. And the medicine that I was going to work with was ketamine, because ketamine is legal and it is quite psychedelic, and it is an off-brand approved purpose in Canada to use it for PTSD, depression, treatment-resistant depression, major depressive disorders, OCD. There's lots of things you can treat with it. And so I was like, okay, I'll build this business plan. And the only part that I didn't have was like the financial part, because I couldn't even conceive of what it might cost. So I started building that out. And then one night I was sitting next to a gentleman who has more of a high profile job. He's probably not well known, but his job is quite well known. And I sat down next to him. He's a physician. And I said, do you know of anyone that would, any doctors that would be interested in running a ketamine clinic with me for depression? And he said, yeah, actually, I know of this psychiatrist who's looking to do it. And so I was like, okay, well, what's his name? So he gave me his name. And so I was at Merchants, drinking Prosecco on a Wednesday night. and so I looked the psychiatrist up on LinkedIn, and I found him, and I was like, well, so actually, I had the regular LinkedIn, and it wanted me to buy the pro LinkedIn or whatever it is, for $9.99 a month or whatever. And I was like, this might be if I can get a hold of this guy and talk to him, this might be a big deal. So it's worth it, right? So signed up for it. Yeah. So I wrote him a message saying, like, listen, I've been working with psychedelics now for a couple of years, and I'm really interested in starting a ketamine clinic. I'm a first responder, and it's in my scope of practice to give people ketamine anyways. Like, we give people ketamine on the ambulance for lots of different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, okay, well, he got back to me the next morning, which is shocking, because like psychiatrists in the city are few and far between, right? There aren't that many. So to hear back from him right away was a shock. And then right away was a bigger shock.
Yeah.
So we met for coffee, and he said, I'm working with this clinic, and they're interested in opening up a ketamine wing, so to speak, or ketamine portion to their clinic. They're already a well-established mental health clinic, and are you interested? So I said, sure. And so I met with the CEO, and at the time that I met with them, they were like, well, we don't really have a position for you, but we'll keep you in mind. And so I went back and I thought to myself, people are very quick to see us just as paramedics.
Yes.
But we're not.
No.
Like, we're so much more than that.
Yes.
If you look at the level of training that a paramedic has, it's astounding what we can do and what our scope of practice is.
Yes.
And if you look at all the extra things, right? Like the fact that we're amazing team players, we are logistic wizards, we are like decision makers like you're not going to find anywhere else.
Yes.
And then I looked and I said, well, I've been running a charity for the last 11 years at that point.
Yeah.
I can run a business successfully. Like,
yeah.
I have so many skills. I can give the ketamine. I know how to facilitate psychedelic ceremonies. I've been doing it for a couple of years now. Like, I bring so much to the table. So I created a position for myself. And I was super fortunate that they brought on a chief operating officer who's a nurse in Emerge in Ontario, but she's also a very successful businesswoman. So she builds medical businesses and makes them successful. And so when she saw my resume, she's like, she's not just a paramedic, you guys. She knows how to run a business.
Yes.
She can manage a team. She can create policies and procedures and protocols for us. She can facilitate and give ketamine. Like, she can do all of it. And so I really created a position for myself following my passion that didn't look like anything that's been done before. Like, there are no paramedics in Canada that are doing what I'm doing. And if there are, amazing. I want to meet you. Right?
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a couple in the States, which was partially my inspiration. There's a gentleman in the States that owns 2 of his own clinics, and he's a paramedic, and he really inspired me. His name is Will, and he owns Transcend Ketamine. And he really inspired me that, like, paramedics were so much more than people give us credit for. And we don't just belong on the ambulance.
No.
We belong running clinics. We belong running our own businesses. We belong being, because like we're independent practitioners. The HPA has said that we are allowed to be individual practitioners, and we carry our own insurance.
Yes.
You know what I mean? A lot of people don't know that.
Yes. That's very true. That's very true.
So, and we deserve to take up space in the fields that make money off of us.
Oh, I like that. What is that? We are allowed to take up space.
Yeah. We're allowed to take up space in the fields that not only make money off of us, but also where our interest is important, right? To be able to advocate. We're allowed to take up space in those places.
Yes. Because you're trained, you're educated, I was, we always used to joke, I was in EMS, I don't think it much knows, but I was also in EMS for 15 years. So I kind of know all of this but it's, when people think of paramedics, you're right. They think of us on an ambulance and that's it.
Yeah, that's it. That's the only place that we serve a purpose.
We take from A to B. And there, as you said, there's so much more. And said, my day doesn't start until yours goes bad.
Exactly.
And you know, who are the first people they call is a paramedic. And as I said, you know, I'd like to see how many people can save a life on the side of in a ditch, right? But they don't understand that because they don't see it.
No,
and
they see the ambulance.
Yes, exactly.
They
And they
see
often
us.
don't see what we do because, you know, it's blocked by fire trucks. And and then we're going to get down a whole other rabbit hole.
I know, right? Most people don't know that we can intubate. Most people don't know that we deliver babies. Most people don't know that we have like 90 some plus drugs that we give, that we can cardiovert, that we can defibrillate, that we can crike, that we can decompress.
Yes.
Like I could go on and on and on.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And most people just don't have a clue. And they're like, oh.
You do that?
Huh.
So you're the driver?
Yeah,
No.
exactly. So are you the driver? Yeah, I am. Half the time I am. That's how I maintain my sanity. Because if I was trapped with you for the whole 12 hours, I'd jump out the back.
Rock, paper, scissors. Who's in the back? Rock, paper, scissors.
I know, right?
Sorry,
so,
no.
but the other important thing too, though, is because mental health is such a big topic with first responders, that I also believe that we get to take up space in the mental health field, because we are the biggest experts in our own mental health. And then that's something I am such a huge advocate for. Like I had to dig myself out of so many things: childhood trauma, sexual abuse, you know, a narcissistic abusive relationship, and then 21 years of being a parent. Well, at that time, 20 or whatever it was, 19, right? The PTSD that I had for years that was treatment resistant. I've dug myself out of all of that, and I did it on my own. It wasn't the mental health system that saved me. It wasn't the meds. It wasn't the talk therapy. It wasn't the hypnosis. It wasn't the ART. It was me, and it was psychedelics, and it was the horses, and it was the people who supported me and loved me. So I feel like we get to take up space in these places where we matter. We get to have a say. And so many of us, it's so funny how many people ask me, well, did you have to go back to school and get like a psych degree? I'm like,
no.
No, I didn't. Well, then how are you working in mental health? Well, see, there's this really cool thing called I get to do whatever I want now.
But you do. I mean, you know, we're trained in it. We have experience in it with the type of mental health, because it is so rampant in society now. You know, as a paramedic, what you come upon, and you deal with people in all different mental health states. And
think about how many mental health calls we go on, and how many mental health patients we treat. Thousands upon thousands upon thousands. So yes, I have a lot of experience working in mental health, not only with my own, but as being a paramedic. I'm the one that they call in a crisis situation. Who do you think is peeling them off the ceiling? It's us. Who do you think is picking them up when they're at the lowest and they want to die? It's us. Who do you think picks them up when they have tried to die? It's us. Right? So we have our own very relevant experience in mental health. And so I'm very fortunate that this lovely nurse saw my resume, put it together, let me have a chance to be like, I can do so much more than you know, and also to work for a company that just hugely advocates for first responder mental health, to the point where they're willing to hire one so that they can make sure that they are doing the best job possible. Like that speaks volumes about it, right? That they're willing to take a chance and do something that no one else has done, and hire a paramedic to work in mental health full time.
I think that's amazing.
So the transition, really what it came down to for me was I knew that EMS, just there was no future there for me. They don't appreciate what I'm capable of. They paid me garbage, treated me badly. The hours sucked. My coworkers are amazing, and I adore them, and I'm still going to work the occasional casual shift to make sure that I keep my toe in there, to make sure that I'm not getting so separated from how bad things are for them that I forget. But in my position, in my role, I can really advocate for these new treatments to be made available, like going to WCB and advocating for first responders to have this treatment covered. Like that's part of my job. is having meetings and sitting with the top doctors at WCB and saying, I need you guys to listen.
Yeah.
I'm alive because of this treatment. Please, 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 please listen to me. And they have been, like, we've had some really big wins, you know, and so I just, the biggest message when it comes to like a big career change for people is you really need to believe in yourself and sell yourself. And especially like to the first responder field, like we're capable of doing so much more than we've been led to believe and how we've been treated. And I think that's a big part of it. You know, we get treated like we're replaceable. We get treated like we're not important. We get treated like we're a very small part of a big system, and we get treated like we're children. So,
you have to be good followers, just be the good little followers, be the good sheep. And
we have no autonomy as human beings. And so, yeah, I really think that once I made healing a full-time job, that's when all of my purposes showed up, and it's really fallen into place after years of fighting for every inch that I got. I could finally just be like, it's all falling into place, you know?
Yeah. So I just kind of want to go back to something that you chatted about, the psychedelics, and I know you had been in Mexico, so you were at a retreat. Just remember, a 7-day retreat. Is that the one you were talking about? Yeah. So I mean, I've never taken psychedelics, so you know, excuse my ignorance, but so what kind of in a short period, because I know it's different for everybody. So what kind of happens, and then what is the end, like how do you get to the end result? Because so what makes psychedelics do what they do?
So they put you into an altered state of consciousness where you can actually process the trauma that you've been through.
Okay.
So it in a way, like it does so many things. It's such a multi-layered treatment, and it does so many things all at the same time, depending on what psychedelic you work with, right? It can cause a big release of serotonin and dopamine and oxytocin, which are, you know, the hormones and chemicals related to love and attachment and well-being and belonging. And then what it does is it moves you out of your amygdala into your prefrontal cortex, where you can actually process things. And then you have these very mystical psychedelic experiences where you really get to sort of question, like, there's so much more to the universe than I thought there was. And so that space that is created in there, in these altered states of consciousness, allow events and trauma to come up to the surface, to be looked at differently, right? And to be able to be perceived from a 360 perspective, so that you can actually re-remember a traumatic event as something that happened, or you can re-remember it as an experience you had versus a trauma that happened to you. So you can actually refile it as a different memory in your brain. But then it also allows this space for all of the emotions tied to the trauma to be released from your body. And the way that happens is you feel safe to be able to feel them. Because once you feel the emotion, you can release it. If you don't feel it, it stays trapped in your body. That's trauma, right?
Yes. Okay.
So it allows this really beautiful, like, space for all of these things to happen. And it also heals on multiple levels. So there's the conscious level, where you are aware that you're having a mystical experience. All kinds of things can happen. You can travel to other planets, you can meet aliens, you can go back and like go through your own birth again. You can have conversations with people who've passed. And so there's the conscious experience that you have, but then it also heals on a subconscious and unconscious level. There's so many things that you don't have to cerebrally process in order to heal from, because the current mental health system makes us believe that we have to have our brain involved in order to heal. But we don't. You feel your way into healing. You don't think your way into healing. And the biggest issue with that is that so many of these injuries are soul injuries. They're brain injuries secondary to a soul injury, but so many of our treatments are brain focused because we believe that that's the only point of injury. And if we can just fix the brain, we'll fix the person. And if we just think and think and think and talk and talk and talk, well, that's not working. We know it's not working. people aren't getting better.
No,
So when
no,
we do
they're not.
soul work,
Mhm.
and this is the analogy I use, it's like we have a lawn full of weeds and we're just mowing the lawn. And we're
Yeah.
like, right, it's all
Yeah.
green and it's all the same length and it looks relatively good. So we're just going to call it a day. We're going to call it good. That's enough for right now. And the minute it rains, what's the first thing that grows back?
Yes.
Right? All the weeds. So when we work with psychedelics, or we do things like work with horses, or we do breath work or meditation, we're actually healing the soul. And what we're doing is we're going around to those weeds and we're pulling them out by the root.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
what I noticed was there's so many things that healed without me having to be cerebrally present for it.
Yes.
And that really threw me off. And my uncle was like, your brain doesn't need to be involved, Jessica, you know? And
Let it go.
let it go. You've healed. Trust that your soul and your
Yes.
internal healer, which are the same thing,
Yeah.
the internal healer aspect of your soul, trust that it's done the work and you didn't have to have your brain so involved in it, right? So yeah,
Wow.
I mean, it's like, honestly, it's an hour-long conversation about
Yes.
how psychedelics work, but that's really the very Coles Notes version of it. And it really depends on what psychedelic you're working with too, because ketamine has very different actions than, say, psilocybin, and psilocybin is different than ayahuasca, and ayahuasca is different than MDMA, right?
So how do you decide what to use? So if someone comes to you and say, I have, this has gone in my childhood, as you said, with abuse and all these, all these traumas or all these horrible things that have happened to them in their lives, do they come to you and then that's how you decide what to use? And then regardless of what it is, they will go on their own journey. Whatever it needs to be done will be done.
Yeah, and it really depends. So if there's some sort of addiction involved as well, then that sort of puts me towards a different medicine.
Right.
If they are out of their window of tolerance very majorly, then I'm probably not going to recommend a psychedelic treatment. I'm going to say, you know what, MDMA is probably going to be your way to go with this.
Right.
And it really depends. How intense do you want it to get, and how much do you want to process in what period of time?
Right. Yeah.
Every medicine kind of works at its own speed, right? Like I say, like working with psilocybin or ketamine, you're sort of peeling back the layers of an onion. And one time might be 2 layers, one time might be 10 layers, one time might be 1 layer, right? It just depends on what your internal healer thinks you can handle or you need to do. Whereas ayahuasca is like cutting the onion in half.
Right.
Or iboga is like,
once and done.
You're going for it, right? So it really depends on what how much work they want to get done, how ready they are to do it, how much prep work they've done.
And I think that's one thing, you have to be ready, don't you?
Yeah.
You have to be ready to deal with this. And I think that's why when you started to talk about it around the fire halls and the stations and people were listening, is because these people are also drowning and looking for a way out. And they're also looking for how they can, because we know so many people who are on the same journey or is going through the life that you lived every day, and they're screaming for help and they're not getting it. And so I have no doubt that they were listening because it sounded like that would work.
Well, and then the biggest thing is they saw that how drastically it changed me for the better.
See, and that's just it, because you don't talk about things unless it's heartfelt. And then like your charity and all these things. So when you really get passionate about something, people listen.
Well, that is true. Probably helps that I'm like 6'1" as well, but I have a bit of a commanding presence in that regard. But I also think too that my behavior and my energy was so different that people were like, you feel different, you look different, you move different, you act different, like. And so that was the biggest thing, is I didn't have to tell them it worked. They could see it in the way that I managed things. They could see it in the way I managed stressful calls. They could see it in the way I managed difficult people. They were like, wow, you're like a totally different person, but still the core of you is the same. I wasn't carrying around this trauma anymore. So I could really truly be who I am instead of the injured version of myself who was very reactive and very angry and very depressed and had a big wall up, whereas now I'm like very comfortable with who I am, and I am more than happy to love, and I'm more than happy to give love, and I'm more than happy to just this is who I am, So I think the way that that was the biggest thing for people, was the way that they saw me change. I didn't have to say anything. They were like, "You're such a big change." I'm sold.
Who are you? What did you do with Jessica?
Exactly.
And then
I start talking about it, and I am very passionate about it. So people do listen because I'm speaking from my heart, and so it's been a hell of a ride, Connie. If you told me 2.5 years ago that I'd be working with psychedelics full time and that I'd be working with horses part time and getting paid to do it,
and not in EMS anymore, like for good, because you've stepped away, and then like there's just no way.
I wouldn't have believed you, and then B, I would have cried just for the relief of it all. That like, oh my God, there's a possibility here that I might not die. And I might actually have a life worth living, So the flip side of that is I don't hate being alive anymore. I'm quite happy to be alive.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's probably
because you are here to change lives, and you did it in EMS as being a paramedic. And now you're doing it in so many different ways. This education and experience doesn't go away, but you don't actually have to work it anymore. So now you're taking, and it's going with the horses, and then now you're going into psychedelics, and now you're creating this amazing platform and safe space for all these other, first responders, military, that can go and in a safe space for people who get it.
Yeah,
they can talk about it, and we're like, we 100% understand what you're talking about. It's not like we have to go to, because I've been there, and try and talk about some of the things that, a horrible call, and we have to process that, and people don't understand it unless they've been through it.
Yeah, exactly. And so I do think it brings a bit of comfort to the people that I'm sitting across from when I can, talk a little bit about my experience and share that. They're like, I'm so glad that you understand. I don't even have to tell you. You already know. I don't actually need to tell you what happened to me. You already have a really good idea. I get to just be here and be looked after, So
yeah. Oh, that just fills my heart, because it's so needed. And I mean, what an amazing person that you are, taking the helm. And I'm not one bit surprised that it is you taking the reins and making, the grooves for everybody going forward. And I'm looking so forward to seeing where this goes with you. And I said, of course, being friends, I will be there with you and get to experience it and watch you grow and all the amazing things that you're going to be able to do for everybody. And I'm so proud of you.
Thank you, honey. You've always been one of my big cheerleaders. So thank you for continuing to do that and doing that the whole time, even when I didn't feel like I deserved a cheerleader or was doing anything worthy of being cheered on. You always were. So thank you.
You never scared me. So we were good. So just to end it off, where can people find you? So if they were looking for you, so where can they touch base with you?
So depending on what you want, if you're interested in ketamine assisted therapy, you can find me at Wayfound Mental Health Group. And if you are interested in equine assisted therapy, you can reach out to Prairie Sky Equine Assisted Therapy. And if you just want to follow me on Instagram, it's Jessica Van der _HOEK, all lowercase. And you can follow my journey on there.
That sounds wonderful. Yeah. I think I'm on all of those. So yes, yes. And you are, I really encourage everybody to, become part of your journey and the doors that you'll be opening for so many people, because this is just the beginning.
It is.
And as you said, all these news things, people, we're becoming more awoke. We already chatted about that. People are waking up, and I think what you're doing is just the beginning of a very big iceberg. And so I really encourage everybody to at somehow in some way keep in contact with you and watch what you're able to do. But I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart and coming on here today and sharing this with us. Again, 2.5 years ago, I don't think I would have ever have asked you to come on and talk about your EMS stuff.
Because I would have gone on a rant for like an hour of just.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I would have just been very angry and then very despondent, because I realized like, this is the hell that I'm trapped in.
So I'm so glad we had an amazing, that just shows you, I mean, everybody who's going to watch this that knows, you're going to go, yes, right, I get it. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing that part of
thank you,
that with us. And then also your journey with the psychedelics and where that's going. And I'm so excited for you. And thank you so much for taking time to sit down with me tonight.
Thank you for having me. It's been an honor.
And you and I will be talking soon.
Yes.
Okay. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.